So it's finally all done. The Echo 7310 stroker. This is the one we swapped the 40mm steel crank in. And I even have some Husky parts on this. So stick around and I'll show you what all went into making this build happen. And it's actually a pretty quick saw. Welcome back, everyone. After nearly a year's worth of sitting, we finally threw this Echo stroker together. This was the 7310, came in blown up. And we stuffed a steel MS660 crank in there. Crank was close enough. We had that fitted into the case last time we put this video out. And days went by, weeks went by, months went by. Next thing you know, Sawfest is coming up. So we need the 5-cube build. Well, this combination, 40mm stroke, 51mm bore, is almost the ideal size for 5 cubic inch race class. So what better saw to build than one that fits the class all the way full? And that's what we did. Ordered all the parts. Those didn't show up in time, so I got a whole separate saw to steal the parts from to get this one together. Went through a few different case gaskets trying to make sure we had all the bits and pieces done. Get that thing sealed up nice and tight. And I think we finally got it. Well, I know we do because we actually ran this at Sawfest. And I brought it home. Did a few other alterations to it, got even more power out of it. But the first round, simply get the crank to fit. That was a chore in itself. Profile both ends, use the conversion bearings, get it all fitted in there. Next thing on the list was to get the piston to fit the cylinder. Well, we went from 36mm stroke to 40. 2mm up, 2mm down. So we had to make sure it wasn't going to hit anything. A little bit of clearancing on the bottom of the piston. And we took all of the material out of the chamber. About 65 thousandths came out of this chamber. That's actually one thing we need to address. We got our squish set at like 25 thousandths. The transfers landed at... The highest transfer landed at 118. We left the transfers alone, matched them all up. I'll put a little video up here of what it looks like inside. And we raised that exhaust. Since we were going to race with it, we had more stroke, longer stroke, can handle a little bit higher ports and still keep the same compression distance. Raised that exhaust, we're like 93, 94 on the exhaust, and the intake landed at 78, 79. So just simply putting this together with a raised exhaust, flattened transfers, port numbers landed pretty darn nice. But the Echo coils, that's the one Achilles heel to most of these late model Echoes. At a certain RPM, they start pulling timing. That's why if you hear a lot of the hot ported Echoes, they'll pop, kind of carry on, because the ports want to run up high, and the timing's trying to pull them back. So, we got this all together, still popped, carried on a little bit. I'll put up the test cut videos of it popping, carrying on. But we took this down to Sawfest. And it was, at that time, a little bit slower than my Poulin, 425, my little 4Q. So I didn't run it. This did get run at Sawfest, and it was just outside the top 10, as it was. So after Sawfest, I decided to come home and see what ignition we could swap onto our 7310. Because I really do think this could be a nice 5-cube build. I know Charles has had some 7310s over here, real close to that 9 horse mark. And I know 9 horse can be super competitive because I ran my 4-cube in the 5-cube class and placed in the top 10. So I think if we can tweak and tune on this and get to the high 9s, close to 10 horse on my setup, then we'll really have something. But I'll pull this recoil off and I'll show you what we have. For the ignition setup. Alright, so here's what we have. I made new leads that fit in there. This is the Husqvarna 288 coil. I machined out this area. That's where you see all the extra oil film. I broke through the oil tank a little bit, so I had to epoxy that up. But it fits this area nice. And then we machined out a spot for our secondary coil to bolt and ground right there. Then the spark plug lead goes up top. Pull this top cover, I'll show you that. Now, I'm not 100% sold on this stroker just yet. I said, I really need to tweak some things and try and get it to make better power, because right now we're still just above that 9 horse mark, and I'll show you the graphs in a minute. I just have these wires zip tied, that's why that's still in the way. But you can see, all just like factory. This is just the first stick of the flywheel, so the timing's close. So we might even gain some power playing with this timing some more. This is still just the first stick, but this is the ignition setup. Like I said, I don't know if it's really worth it. Since I have it done now, we're going to stick with it. And I do need to pull this cylinder back off. I did notice that my piston was contacting a little bit of our leftover cut, so I need to do that. Want to check everything out, but I just want to show everybody what we have with our stroker here. Like I said, this thing would be a monster 5 cube / firewood saw. Still 100% stock intake, stock filter. We just have our nice little muffler mod, but I'll put up those test cuts of right after assembly and then after swapping this ignition, and then we'll look at the dyno runs and results. So you can see it really seemed to help the upper RPM power swapping to this 2-piece style ignition. I said those echo coils, they just pull that timing right where we're trying to make power with this type of porting. And we still have a good bit of tuning we can do. This is a 100% factory carburetor. And the throttle cable, I ordered all new stuff, never showed up yet, so we're still waiting. But throttle cable stretched a little bit, and it doesn't give us full throttle. Not that that's going to make a huge difference, but we always want full throttle. My piston is making a little bit of contact at top dead center with some of the material we cut out. We had to take a lot out of this squish band, and we just didn't quite get it all the way enough. Hasn't stopped it, hasn't started smearing, but I can see a little witness mark around the piston. So I want to address a little bit of machine work, address a little bit of the porting, and maybe even swap to a brand new piston cylinder just so we get the best power possible. This was a salvage cylinder, cleaned up nice, but it's still not as good of a bore as a fresh OEM. So work on the porting, work on the timing, modify the carb, and maybe between those few modifications we can keep bumping up this power, and I'd really like to get close to that 10 horse range. But let me know what you think of this Echo Stroker, and we will take a look at the dyno runs. Here's our results. This baseline 7310 is a stock 7310 with a muffler mod. 5.98 horse, 4.1 foot-pounds. It's down here, these two lines. Then we have the first rendition before Sawfest and as ran at Sawfest, 7310 stroker with the factory Echo coil. 8.3 horse, just over 5 foot-pounds. You can see, runs out hard, and it's wanting to do stuff up here, and that's just kind of where it's doing the coil thing. And this blue line, this is our second ignition, the 2-piece after Sawfest. 9.1 horse, 5.23. Said that was just a shot in the dark timing, sticking it on there, you know, educated guess, but it liked it a little bit better than factory. We are making better torque all the way across the board, and it's hitting up high. This is peaking real close to 11.5, and a lot of this is just where we had our tune. A little bit richer tune, 13.5, 14,000 RPM. But, like I said, we still have some fine tuning to do on this, and I'd still like to get this one up around that 10 horse mark if we can on the dyno. Like I said, it's, as you've seen from the videos, it's really holding the RPM, flying through the wood. But Who doesn't want more power? Especially if it's a firewood saw we're going to take to a race. So, this is what we have. We're jumping leaps and bounds in power. And now it's going to start slowing down, but hopefully we can just keep on inching this up all the way up to that 10 horse mark. Yeah, well, so let me know what you think about this Echo Stroker. Yeah, you think it's really going to be a firewood monster? Because like I said, once I get it fully dialed in, winter is coming up and we will be cutting with it as long as it still runs. But hopefully it still runs. So if you've stuck around this far, I have 2 more saws that I want to introduce you to. So we'll flip back around and I'll show you which ones they are. So just an extra little treat for those of you that stuck around. I truly appreciate you watching all the way through these videos. Definitely helps the channel. And what we have here is our clones. We have 2 new clone saws. Husqvarna 372 and a Husqvarna 395. What are these for? Well, Sawfest. Sawfest 372, and they opened up the rules this year. So instead of running a 660 only, you can run 660 or a 395 in the bigger class. So both of these will be getting built up for Sawfest. But I really want to take the time and go through this 372. I plan on doing lots of little step-by-steps with it, just like we did with that 366 last year. And I do have some final videos. We did get that 366 all done. Didn't quite get all of them done like we wanted, but we got one done and we placed 3rd with it. But I got a whole nother video of that coming up. And if you have some ideas on what you want to see 100% with this 372, leave them in the comments. Let me know what you guys want to see. And 395, we may try a couple little builds or we may just go full tilt with it. But we want to try and make super strong saws that we could potentially win Sawfest with. So, fingers crossed we can pull something out like that. And, typical fashion, we'll probably start real hard and we'll still finish them in October next year. So, we'll end it here and hopefully you enjoyed. Till next time, thanks a lot everyone.